an independent musician? How would you like to have your songs played on hundreds of radio stations just like the one you're listening to right now? Join MusicSubmit.com and we'll promote your music to radio stations and blogs in your genre. It's free to set up your account, and we guarantee your music will be considered for airplay by radio stations worldwide. Why not sign up today? It's free. MusicSubmit.com. Radio promotion for indie musicians.
Because the emotional intelligence really kick in. Do you have that self-awareness? Do you have the social awareness? So number one is the self-awareness. Are you able to be aware of your emotional state when you walk into that classroom? Are you able to regulate your experiences when your child is not listening and you can't believe they cannot find their shoes, and we go over the same location every day and night, and why are we struggling, which made you late? Therefore, you couldn't have your cup of coffee and you bring that energy. But are you paying attention to the social climate of what occurred in that community the night before or the morning before as well? So I think we need to kick it into the next gear with the emotional intelligence.
Hey, what's going on? This is Mike Coates, and you're watching Side B TV with Phil Jackson.
Hey, what's going on? This is Phil Jackson, host of Side B TV, being brought to you on the Boombox Union channel. Please go back and hit that like and subscribe button. Listen, I've been working overtime the last 2 or 3 days, putting up a lot of interviews because I have over 10 interviews that I have not posted yet. So just be patient. I'm going to get all the interviews up. I don't know when, but I'm just going to do them periodically. I think I had just posted maybe 4 or 5 back to back. And, shout out to all the participants that helped me, put this together, the interview. It was just so many good interviews that I've done, with artists talking about their journeys. And what I wanted to do in this episode, I wanted because it's more than hip hop, because it's all hip hop is education, but I want to talk about real education. And I had to bring my next guest on because he's very interesting. I know him through a mutual acquaintance, and his story is so dope, and what he's doing in the community with with his education skills. He's a principal, he's a podcaster, he comes from a well-known fraternity, and he gives back to the community, man. And you have to go out and check out his 2 podcasts that are out right now, and we're going to talk about all that. I have my man, the educator, Mr. Michael Coates. He's joining Side B TV right now. What's going on? How you been doing, sir?
I'm good. I'm blessed, man. Thank you for having me, man. This is dope, Phil.
Hey, look, man, I want a special shout out to Thomasina because she put this all together. She was
Absolutely.
like, I got somebody interesting for you. And I was like, all right, bet. And she was telling me about you, and I was like, all right, let's switch numbers. And we connected, and I've been watching clips of your podcast. I've been going on your social media pages, and you're a very interesting guy. So I want to start out because this is a different lane for me, but having podcasts and having these type of platforms, you have to bring it out to the masses. You see what I'm saying? And you have to give out vital information. And sometimes that the information might come in music, or it might come in education. And I wanted to go in a different route because I still think that hip hop and education still go hand in hand. But, tell me about, how you started in education, and, just tell me your journey of how you started and where you're at right now in your educational career.
Again, thank you for having me, Phil. This is, This is an amazing opportunity for me as well. So how did I get here in education? It was a funny thing. When I did not like school. When I was going through, I did not. I did well. I did make honor roll throughout middle school, and and whatnot. But when I graduated high school, or when I was about to graduate high school, rather, my mind, I was not thinking about college. Like my sophomore, junior year, I was like, man, when I'm done, I'm done. I'm thinking about I'm just gonna go play football to be, you think you're gonna be a superstar.
Right.
Until those reality checks start hitting you. You ain't really the best one on the field. Only a handful of cats really get to the next level or even to the pros. So college became more of a realistic opportunity for me at that time.
Okay.
I was going to Delaware State University. Very, very proud Delaware State alumni here before you. And I think that in college is when it actually went off for me about the importance of education.
Got you.
And the opportunities that education brings to you. When we talk about grades K through 12, that's truly your foundational years. And I think a lot of people don't capitalize on that time like they should, because it definitely sets you up for success in your future endeavors. But when you get to college, it kind of opens your eyes up. It broadens your horizon, so to speak, because you start to interact with people from different walks of life, different places,
Absolutely.
different mindsets. And you kind of take, if you're really a student of society, a student of life, you start to take that stuff in. You start to really look at other people's perspectives rather than thinking that your perspective is the only one or the end all be all. You start to learn a lot of different things about the world around you that you never had known before. So got through college, majored in psychology, was really thinking I'm going to be the next Fraser Crane, so to speak. I'm going to be these psychologist guys out
Right.
here giving advice on the radio and getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars. It didn't work out like that. Actually, my first job, straight out of college, I was still working. The job I was working during college was a manager at a movie theater. But then I fell across this job where it was like group home therapy. So for children of the state, stuff like wards of the state, was helping with them. And my title was a behavior therapist.
Okay.
Got that job because, you majored in psychology. This is a perfect opportunity for you. So,
okay.
But all that truly was just kind of being like a big brother, big mentor to some children who, whose family kind of gave them away to the state. Some of their families were still involved to a degree, but they stayed in this facility for the duration, like for the week. It might have went to see their parents every other weekend or family members every other weekend, something like that. So from there, had a lady, Thomasine daughter, was my steady girlfriend at the time. And it was just like, I have to do something to provide a better way of life for us. So a friend of mine was substitute teaching in Prince George's County, Maryland, gorgeous Prince George's. That's what we know have notably dubbed it. And he put me on. Was like, look, they hiring out here for teachers. All you need is a bachelor's degree. You can get you a good job, steady pay, leave, benefits, all that good stuff. I said, okay, that sounds like an opportunity. And all those memories of like, oh my gosh, I did not enjoy school, but hey, it is what it is. I need a job. Got into it and fell in love with it. My first month, I fell in love with education. Really because of the impact you have with kids. And now as a principal, fast forward, and that's what I kind of lead with, is that education is one of the few, if not only, opportunities you have to directly put your handprint on the future. Working with students, working with kids, you can directly impact the future. Now, it may be for good or maybe for bad. So you can positively impact it or you can negatively impact it, depending on the type of rapport you establish with your students, and what you really want to give and pour into your students. Because we can all remember those good teachers, and we should sure remember them bad teachers.
Now, I want to talk about your earlier days back in college. Number one, my first question is like a two-part question. My first question is, did you play football in college?
No, actually, I did not. I was trying to walk on my freshman year. I was working out with some guys that called prospects, so guys that they had recruited, but for some reason or other, they didn't have the grades to actually play their freshman year. So working out with those guys, doing my thing, hoping I could walk on potentially in the spring or at least for the next season. and kind of got played. It didn't work out like that.
Okay.
A few other cats that was trying to do the same move, so we just kind of just like, whatever. No love lost. It is what it is. My dad sent me to school to get my education, so
Absolutely.
that's kind of what I focused on for
Okay.
my time there.
Now, Dell State, historic HBCU. What made you decide to go to Delaware State? Because just everybody, it always has in our minds, oh, you have to go to, the major, universities. And because my sister, she actually graduated from Elizabeth City State down in Elizabeth
Oh,
City,
okay.
North
Yeah,
Carolina.
yeah.
So, I was supposed to go down there, but you know,
Hey,
I was supposed to keep the tradition going, but
you
it,
know,
I had different plans.
life
But
happens. Life happens.
yeah, exactly. But tell me how important that was to go to a HBCU, because now, you know, what we see now, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. What we see now in this administration, that I'm not saying that they're trying to do with HBCUs, but they're kind of trying to do away with HBCUs. So, how important was that, and what made you decide to go to Dell State, aka historic Black college?
So it's funny. I really didn't know anything too tough about HBCUs.
Mm,
Like as I,
mm,
applied for schools and whatnot, I know Dell State accepted me. And that worked out in my favor because I'm from Delaware, so it was real easy. If I needed something emergency, I can get in contact with my folks, and they can get down there to Dover, Delaware, quick, fast, in a hurry.
yeah.
But I really didn't understand HBCUs until I actually was in an HBCU. And it's funny because me and my wife were just having this conversation not too long ago about how much the Delaware State opened up our eyes to, what it meant to be Black.
Mm,
Growing up, I was a military kid, so I was around a whole bunch of different races, but always the minority, so to speak. But when you got to Dell State, you felt you were amongst your peoples. Everybody there predominantly was African American, was Black. Like I said earlier, from different walks of life. I had a friend from Chicago, had a friend from DC, a bunch of friends from Maryland, a bunch of friends from Jersey, formed a lot of friendships from folks from Philadelphia,
okay.
Philly, from New York. Had a friend from a few folks from Atlanta, from Georgia. And it was just amazing to just kind of cohabitat with these individuals, learn what what their life was like when they were back home, and what their goals and ambitions are. And just being in the HBC, you kind of feel more of a sense of family. I'll put it like
Mm,
that. Just talking with friends of mine who went to PWIs, like Cornell, stuff like that. Being at Dell State really made them feel like they were at home. They were amongst your family. You know what I mean? So for me, that's the biggest thing. But also the tradition, as you alluded to. I'm in Omega Psi Phi fraternity, and
yeah.
as you begin to learn more and more about the brothers of Omega, but also of other organizations that came out of HBCUs, and the impact that they not only had at the school or the professions, but what they've had on society. You know what I'm saying? You talking about brothers like Martin Luther King, Jesse Jackson. You got a lot of dudes who have come out of HBCUs and have made an amazing impact on society and the way that things are moving and shaking. And then it's I don't want to say it's humbling, but it's almost it's I would say it's a feeling of, I don't want to say disgust. I don't want to be too harsh with it, but
Okay.
it's
Right.
you have this feeling now, the way that things are going, and it's almost like the attack on HBCUs that are taking place. It's almost like a slap in the face of these people who have helped to shape the American society, if not globally. And for the sake of just saying, yeah, we're trying to find ways to remove funding from these state schools, these HBCUs, because HBCUs depend primarily on state funding.
Right.
We're not like most private institutions where we have a large alumni base who
Mm,
have millions of dollars to just keep, the doors open at the school. We depend on state funding. And now that, we have a certain administration in office right now who are trying to pull those funds,
right.
and even restrict certain things from being taught. It's like you don't want us to learn about who we are, what we've come from, and that's, for me, that's a huge disservice to the next generations of future HBCU alumni. Like, why would you deprive them of that opportunity to learn what they've come from, to help them understand where they're going?
Now, because you said that you come from your father was in military, right?
Correct. Yep.
So like, you traveled, you were all you
Yeah,
like
I've been a few
so
places.
so going to because now because you traveled and you were amongst other races. Now, going to an HBCU, when you stepped on campus for the first time, was that I don't like to say a culture shock, but like, was that kind of like, whoa, just it was kind of different for you? Or like, how did you were you able to adjust, instantly, or did it take some time?
I would say not necessarily a culture shock.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
I would,
exactly. I didn't want to say culture
no,
shock,
no, no. I get what you get.
Right,
It's hard to try to find the
right,
words.
right, right.
But I would say it was a shock and awe type of feeling. Like when I first got dropped off, my dad dropped all my junk off in front of the door and was like, "All right, good luck." And he would have hit the slot machines
Yeah.
across the street at Dover. What used to be known as Dover Downs is now
Yep, yep,
Bally's.
yep.
But once I got settled, I had a few friends that I knew were coming there already. So
Okay.
trying to link up with them, linked up with them, and they were like, "Look, man, let's just go walk the campus and see what's going on." So where my dorm was, I lived my freshman year, well, pretty much my entire college career actually. I lived in a dorm called Conwell Hall, which is right
Okay.
behind what's an area code known as the Plots, and the Plots have all the Greek letter organizations surrounding this grassy field, so to speak. So it was like once we got loaded up, we hooked up, we walk out, and it was beautiful. It was like not a scene out of School Day, so to speak.
Mm,
I got more of a different world type of vibe. You know what I'm saying? Like it was seeing the cues.
yep.
My fraternity, they were literally right outside my dorm room. Seeing them, they on the grill, they setting out hops, they stepping, seeing the alphas, the sigmas, the zetas, the deltas, just seeing all these, beautiful black people just out here kicking it. It just felt like home. It felt like
Yeah,
going to a family
absolutely.
reunion. You know what I'm saying? And you just meet your cousin. Yeah, that's your cousin such and such from
Yep.
North Carolina. That's your cousin such and such. They moved out Cal. It's like, whoa, wow. It was amazing. It was amazing. And obviously, the numbers were in the favor of the fellas. You had,
Yeah.
it was pretty much 10-1 when we talk about females. So I'll say it was a nice ambiance taking place that first day on campus.
Man, look, let me tell you something. I didn't per se go. I took a couple classes at Elizabeth City State, and I
Okay.
was supposed to go there, and I didn't. But that's the one thing I regret. But if you haven't stepped on a HBCU campus, I'm telling you right now,
Mm.
to my audience out there, if you have not stepped on a HBCU campus, I haven't been on a HBCU campus in years, but back in the late 80s and early 90s, oh
Come
my god.
on.
Look,
It's
it
about the
was
heyday right
definitely when you say school days, a different world, it was more like school days
there.
for me.
Right, right, right.
Because Elizabeth City State was right. I don't like to say right in the hood, but it was right in the neighborhood.
There you go.
And and you mingled with
The low,
the
you know.
locals. And it was just like exactly. It was just like that. And it was a beautiful thing because everybody there was there to gain knowledge.
Right,
And my
right.
sister gained so much knowledge because, like you said, it was just some things that they just weren't teaching in the public school because we used to live in
Oh,
North Carolina.
right.
So there were some things that my sister didn't know that, and then when she came back home on breaks or if I went up there, she would put me on the game in certain things, and it was just a beautiful experience. And I feel as though that every African American student should actually apply to go to a HBCU because it is a learning experience that you will gain. Not even just that, you will gain friendships for life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like I said, I'm not, alumni of a HBCU, but I've been on, Elizabeth City State, Norfolk State, Hampton, Cheney, Delaware State, and the homecomings, whoo man. Look, real quick. I know we're getting off topic, but I'm telling you right now, the homecomings, especially for Elizabeth City State, we didn't go for the football games. We went for the halftime show for the bands.
You went for the band, man.
That
A
was
lot
that
of
was the
times,
90s. Yeah, man. And you having the Greek stepping and all that, man. It was like you have the step shows at night.
mm-hmm.
And, then you had the concerts, and you know what? And the thing about it is, back then, and I can actually say right now too, it was all peace. It was all everybody was just there, just having a good time. The
Nope.
whole weekend, yeah, it was a beautiful experience, man. And and we need more brothers like you, representing the HBCUs, because, like you said, it's like they're under attack right now. I feel, this is just my opinion. I could be wrong, but I just see what's going on in the world right now, and I feel as though that they're really under attack. They're not. They don't want to fund anything. Like, what's going on right now. This podcast might come out a little bit later,
Mm-hmm.
after when the shutdown is over. But the world, HBCUs are under attack right now, and we just need more guys like you just stepping up, and and just representing the HBCUs, and being involved in the community, because, like I said before, it, you just gain friendships for the rest of your life, and you
Absolutely.
are you are committed to that community basically forever. And you just go back, and you just help out the students and everything, and it's just a beautiful thing, man. Now, moving forward, number one, when did you graduate from Del State?
I came out in 2004.
Okay, 2004. So, and you still didn't know which way to go, like you said. You had, now tell me about, because you did mention being a behavioral educator. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, was that a fulfilling, how was that when you held that position? Because that can be actually challenging,
Mm-hmm.
because, like you say, you have people that don't want the kids anymore, or just for whatever what reason. But, like, how was that, and how long did you stay in that position also? Because I can only imagine that you know you don't want it to get personal, but I can only imagine that it did get personal. So tell me about that a little bit more.
So the behavior therapist position was something I picked up like right out of college. I worked at for about 2 years.
Okay.
And it was really a group home setting. It was a company that owned a few different group homes within the area. They were based in, the one I worked with was based in Delaware.
Okay.
But they were expanded all up and down the East Coast, actually. So they had facilities in Florida, they had facilities in Connecticut, whatnot. But I worked at one of the, well, technically like two of the group homes in Delaware. They had about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They had about 7 group homes in Delaware. And really that role, it was really just monitoring these kids that lived there in the group home. So, some of them, they needed medication. So you had to make sure the medication was properly given out. So they had the right dosage. We were trained in techniques. So in case a student or a kid kind of got out of pocket, you had the autonomy to kind of, what they call place them in a wrap mat or restrain them and put them in something called a wrap mat, which is like a little soft padding with straps, kind of put them there until they calm down and, let them get themselves together. During the daytime for certain students, depending on their age, they had school. They had this thing called being forced, which I really did not like. So let's say I typically worked the overnight shift. And if let's say they were short in the morning, I would be forced to stay. And this wasn't cool because, if I had another job, that would kind of impact my other job,
Right.
so to speak. So if I did get forced, that means you would have to go and work the daytime shift, which was school. So you'd have to go and be in the school building with these kids. And sometimes they didn't have teachers. So now you have to actually teach a lesson. And it's just like, I don't know what I'm doing right now, but you try to do what you can do. So, I pulled the newspaper out, I'd read an article, have them kind of have a conversation about it the best they could. And that's kind of like where I started a little dabbling in education and teaching. But yeah, that job only lasts about 2 years for me until a friend of mine put me on to actually teaching, and which became a lot more lucrative, and the benefits were a lot more better.
Got you. Now, I can only imagine like you had to detach the emotions from that particular job. Like, was that easy for you, or did you find that in the beginning like a little bit difficult?
I mean, in the beginning, it was cool because I didn't know the kids. So
Okay.
it's like I'm just coming to work, doing what I got to do, and I got to leave. But as you work with these same individuals over time, you do begin to establish a rapport with them, and you start to take a liking to them. Even though they're there for whatever reasons they may be, you start to show them love as if they are your family to a degree. So there was a young man whose family kind of gave him up. He had a lot of psychological issues. He would become very combative over time, but as you establish a rapport with him, you start to love on him a little bit more. You start to notice things about him, and you start to show him love in those areas. So I know he was a Philadelphia Eagles fan, so we would get things Philly related, Eagles related, and he would be excited about it. And it would be those type of things where you start to establish a rapport with these youth. And then unfortunately, as I transitioned out, I lost contact with them.
Okay.
But yeah, it was in the beginning, it was easier, but as you stay around a lot more, you spend more time with them, it definitely got harder, with separating emotions from the professionalism.
Gotcha. So when you were in college, when did the light bulb go off that education? Maybe I want to find a career in education. Like when did that light bulb go off for you?
So it definitely wasn't in college. That was not mom in my head. I was going to be a psychologist.
Right. Okay.
But I think for me, a lot of times the light bulb didn't go off until I was actually in these positions. So for like the education thing, once I was actually teaching, that's when it was like, oh yeah, I can do this. I can see myself doing this for the long haul. And it was a moment where it was like I was teaching a lesson on photosynthesis to some students. I was a special education science teacher. So we're talking about photosynthesis, and we're talking about the products that come out and what needs to go in. And the students, it just went off with one particular student, and then all of a sudden it was just like you could visualize the class, and the light bulbs just start popping off, and it was just like, oh yeah, this is what it is. It's one of those moments as an educator that they come few and far between, unfortunately, when you get to see the light bulb go off. But it's one of those moments that you truly cherish, because it's like, all right, I'm doing something right. Because a lot of times in education, you feel like you ain't doing nothing right, because it's like the kids seem like they got it, then you assess them, and it's just like, oh man, what's going on? Back to the drawing board. Every year that the new crop of students are way different from the previous students that you've had. So you try to find your victories whenever you can.
Okay. So do you ever still have that urge to go back in the psychology field?
Actually recently I have been.
Okay.
I've been going to some therapy, dealing with some situations right now, and it has kind of piqued my interest in, like, maybe I can do something related to providing therapy or providing some form of mental health support. Um, just it's just been an inkling, nothing serious, but
Yeah.
time to time I do get that. And then me and my wife have been talking about possibly doing something with marriage counseling.
Okay.
So stuff like that kind of piques my interest around psychology and mental health.
Okay. So, going back to education, because now you're a principal at a middle school, and congratulations about that. 19 years in education. What are some of the challenges in being in the educational field?
Some of the challenges. Where do I begin? Most currently, especially from my position as a principal, but the biggest thing is really vacancies. Trying to make sure you're fully
Mhm,
staffed. And then for me, I'm very particular about staffing because I don't want to just put anybody in front of students. Because I always think about what would I want for my own child. Like I don't want
mhm.
just any Joe Blow off the street to be in front of in front of my child, teaching them God knows what. So for me, that's the biggest thing is staffing vacancies. The next thing that's on the list is really um, just the levels of support. I'm really big on providing career technical exposures. I'm in middle school, so that's grades
Mhm,
6, 7, and 8. Um, and I just really think that, a lot of times in education, we focus so much, we talk about college and career ready, but we
mhm.
focus a lot more on college than we do career. And I say that because a lot of times I think students need opportunities and options as they progress through education. I don't think we need to just focus so much on college
Mhm.
and neglect a career. I think it would benefit students to leave high school with some sort of trade skill or a set of trades in their toolbox. So that way, if college is not something that they desire, or if they get to college, it's kind of like, yeah, this really ain't for me. They have something else to fall back on, and they don't have to become a burden to anybody or put themselves in debt or some form of fashion like that.
Now, I remember, I'm dating myself. Like they had home ec. You learn everything in home ec. So, like, and forgive me, I've been out of high school slash college for years. And I know where my two sons graduated from. They didn't have that. So, like, is that one of the reasons why some of the kids per se fall behind because they don't have those type of resources in school?
It absolutely is the truth. Like I said, for me, is trying to provide resources. That's a challenge at times, because a lot of these entities that can provide that skill set or that training, they want to get paid too. So unless you have an abundance of funds to provide that, or if you can find somebody or organization who is willing to do this free of charge, pro bono type of stuff, um, it's tough. So yeah, a lot of these kids, they end up falling behind.
So, like, because I don't know anything about that, but like, is it like, can do you or did you present something to the board, let's just say, and you
So
have this idea and it's like, and they shoot it down? I mean, like, is that one of the reasons why? I mean, because, like, I I know like a couple of educators, and they have all these bright ideas, and they not bright, I'm sorry, they have all these great ideas,
mhm.
and and they present them and they just get shot down. So, like, do you was those one of some of your challenges also?
So not necessarily ideas shot down. Really the biggest thing is
Funding.
finding funding. Definitely, that's the main one, is funding. But then also, does it align with the school
Mm,
district mission and vision and what their
right.
big rocks are? Um, and if you can finesse a way to make sure, yes, this does align with this particular, um, you know, directive that you all are coming down the pipeline with, cool. They'll most likely let you run with it.
Mhm.
But the other piece again is funding. Like, do we have money, and where is this money supposed to come from? That's always a question that's up in the air. And always really the biggest hurdle to get over is funding.
Absolutely. So, because we were just talking about this current administration and everything like that. How much does politics deal in the educational system, because now we see it like it's right in front of us.
Yeah.
And we try to separate that. I know they tried to separate that at one point, but it just seems like politics is overflowing into the educational system. Do you feel as though that's the same too?
Well, I think politics have always been in education. Even with the founding of public education, I think it's always
Okay.
been there. I just think that this day and age, when we talk about federally, is had its hands in a lot deeper. When we talk about federally, because then we're talking about funding, we're talking about money. So at that point, that's when a lot of federal funds, they come with a lot of mandates, a lot of restrictions on what you can use funds for, how you can get these funds made available to you. You have to show and prove that with these funds this is going to happen, and the end results have to match what you originally said they were going to do. um, but yeah, I mean, when you look at the current administration, they're trying to pull, from my perspective, they're trying to pull back funding and put federally, anyways, and put it on the states to have the states
Mm,
determine what's going to. But then
yep.
again, that's going to make it tight again, because states have so much money available to spread across the many different departments and organizations, and whatever it is that they have to ensure that their state is functioning properly, and they rely on federal funding to absorb a lot of those costs, particularly when around education. So we're talking about Title I funds, we're talking about additional special education funding. They're relying on the federal government to kind of foot the bill on that, so that way that frees up more of the state funding to use elsewhere. But now, when you're talking about, they're pulling a lot of that federal funding, like they've pulled Title I and whatnot, and they're starting to pull special education funds away, and they're going to leave it to the states to determine how they are going to reallocate funds and support these different avenues or these different
Mhm.
areas. It's going to make state budgets tighter, which is going to trickle down to a lot of other areas. So now, they're not going to be able to give as much money to certain organizations if they want to give it to schools, or they might not give the schools anything. Schools will keep getting the same amount of money they were getting, and they're going to not receive, as well as not receive, that federal funding. So now it's going to put school systems in jeopardy of providing adequate instruction or providing an adequate educational experience for the students they serve.
Now, this might be a silly question, but has your district felt the effects now, opposed to like the new budget coming in 2026? Are you feeling the crunch right now as you speak?
Yeah, so we actually have. We started this year out with our Title I funds being drastically reduced.
Wow.
So and I can only imagine it's going to continue as the years progress during this administration. But yeah, we've already started to feel the crunch. School district is tightening up how money is being allocated and where money is being spent. We had to justify a lot more. Um, I'll say we have to go more in depth with our justifications for using funds certain ways. So that, yeah, we're definitely feeling the belt tighten up around the waist. So we gotta get on a treadmill, so to speak, to figure out how we can trim the fat and really adjust to this new normal, so to speak, for the time being.
You know what? I'm just gonna put it out there. I'm just gonna ask you. And if you don't want to answer, you don't have to answer. But do you feel as though that they're targeting certain school districts, meaning, you know depending on what area they're in, or if they're inner city opposed to, you know rural, or, I mean, like, do you think that they're targeting certain school districts?
I don't want to say they're necessarily targeting certain school districts. I will say I think they're attacking public school. I think
Yes.
public school and just nationwide is being attacked right now because public school depends on federal funding the most.
Yes.
Um, I think this is a a plan or a situation where they're trying to monetize education. And I say monetize it because I think they're trying to privatize education for the entire nation. So they're trying to get rid or absolve public education, and make a system in place where education is something you have to pay for, much like a lot of different countries do, where they provide free education up to a certain grade level. Traditionally, it's primarily like elementary, and then after that, you have to pay for a child to continue education. So a lot of countries, you have students who only go up to like fifth grade, maybe. And then after that, anything after like fifth grade, you have to, the family has to figure out how to pay for it. Whether it be through scholarships because your student, shows some sort of athletic prowess, or is showing some, level of academic ability, they may get a scholarship, but primarily people have to pay out of pocket for their kids to go to school.
Okay.
And I think that's the direction that they're trying to head the United States in.
Now, do you have kids that are previously in school right now?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
And so, like, are they in your? Are you their principal?
No, no, no,
that would be dope. So, yeah, my dad's a principal. No, but are there where they're going to school at? Are they feeling the crunch now, or are they seeing certain things being not taken away but being drastically reduced? Like, are they seeing that also in their school district?
Absolutely. So I mean, my daughter goes to the same school district as me.
Okay.
Just attends a different school. But that school is also feeling the crunch, because budgets were cut this year. So with that, when budgets are cut, that means usually you got to make some tough decisions. Staffing positions might get cut. So you might have had a teacher that you needed, but now due to budgeting, I can't afford this teacher anymore. So you come up with a new scheme, and now you got to cut this position. So now you're talking about people's livelihoods are being placed in jeopardy. So yeah. I mean, across the district, budgets have been cut, and everybody's pretty much feeling this pain.
No, okay, no, I totally understand. Now, you are a principal of a middle school in Prince George's County, Maryland, correct?
Yes, sir.
Shout out that school, man, because that's your pride and joy right there. All the kids are watching right now. Well, they shouldn't because it's late, but go ahead, shout that out, man.
Yeah, I'm the proud principal of Charles Carroll Middle School, man. Go Cougars.
No, so now how long you been principal, sir?
This will be my third year.
Okay. So like how did you get was that something that was in your goal, or like you said, it just fell in your lap and it's like, yo, I really do like this?
What's funny? I didn't see myself being a principal either. I actually served under some phenomenal leaders, and one of which I actually kind of had a conversation about it when I started to pursue moving into administration.
Okay.
Gentleman named Dr. David Curry. He's a super dope leader. And I just remember talking to him about it, and he was like, "Man, it's something you should do." And I remember he gave me this book called Leadership and Self-Deception. He's like, "Man, read this." So read that, digested it, and I was just like, "All right, I'm gonna do it, man." He's like, "So what? You got to get your master's, you got to get your admin one, so you can at least move into that space of an assistant principal." So got to work on that. Constantly checked in with him, checked in with other folks, other friends I have that, also were in a leadership position in schools. Just, letting them be mentors to me, helping, asking them questions, bouncing ideas off of them. And then I want to say over the course of like maybe 3 years, I was able to get an assistant principal position. And then from there, maybe 5 years, I was able to apply and be hired as a principal.
Congratulations on that. So, tell me about your school, man, and tell me about the students, and just like the whole model of the school. And did you come in, not saying that you're trying to be like Joe Clark or something like that, like lean on me. You see what I'm saying? But like, did you see some things that you wanted to change within the school that you were at?
So it's funny. I actually was a teacher at that school, and that's
Okay.
where I
Oh,
was mentored by Dr. Curry, who inspired me to become an administrator. So it was very so much a blessing to come back and lead the school I taught at. But this school is a very diverse school. We have about 77% Hispanic or Latino
okay.
students. We're sitting at about another 15 to 20% of students that are Black or African American,
Mhm.
and then just a small percentage of students who are, considered what they say other. So it can be Asian, Asian or Asian American, Native American, Caucasian, white, so on
Mhm.
and so forth. So we have a very very diverse um, or ethnically diverse group of students in our building. Um, when I first came on as the principal, one thing I talked with teachers, and the biggest thing that they shared, or individuals that paneled me for the job, the biggest thing they shared was safety. A lot of
Okay.
folks in the building did not feel safe. They felt, that it was a bit dangerous. So the
Mhm.
main thing I focused on my first year was safety and security. So what if that meant that we had to ensure that doors, we have a lot of exterior doors, that they were maintained closed, they stay closed, they stay locked up and monitored. We then designated specific areas for people to enter the building and out the building or exit the building, uh,
Okay.
things of that nature. At the time, the school district was also in the process of upping the level of security. So we were one of the first schools to get security enhancements, which are pretty much metal
Okay.
detectors.
Right,
Uh,
right. Okay. Okay.
so that definitely helped. That helped the community. They felt a lot safer, um, and whatnot. And even the staff, they felt safer as well.
Okay.
Um, Another thing was just making sure that we kind of zeroed in on, I'll say maladaptive behavior. So when
Mhm.
I got there, it was just a lot of students just kind of doing what they felt they needed to do. So really, um, having behavior expectations in place. We need you to get to class and you need to remain in class. If we want to see an improvement in these scores, these test scores, you need to get more of this direct instruction. So we had a lot of students who unfortunately weren't with that plan. So, we did help support them and get them the services that they needed, whether it been to remain at Charles Carroll or if they needed to transition to another school, to give them the level of support that they needed. And those were my main two focuses for the first year. The second year, I wanted to focus more so on helping the students.
Okay.
Um, and what I mean by that was I noticed a lot of our students they had a lot of social emotional needs.
Okay.
Mm. And which was a running theme for public schools and education since we got out of COVID. But just running the school, I could see it from the balcony as I looked over the entire school. These students just needed a lot more support, and really education around coping strategies when they feel themselves being frustrated. So I brought on board a peer mediator, and I think that really made a wealth of difference. We saw a drastic drop in suspensions.
Okay.
We saw more students um, really advocating for themselves versus trying to handle it physically or in another maladaptive way. So really
Gotcha.
speaking to concerns of bullying, speaking to concerns of feeling not seen or heard. So my second year, I was really trying to focus on putting the students at the forefront of the school. So we actually came up with a student led morning announcements team,
Okay.
um, which really helped, really garnered a lot more interest from students in the school.
Oh man, real quick.
Hmm.
Saying those students announcements over the intercom, I know like from when I went to school, that
Hmm.
was a big thing, man. And I'm telling you, man, and it makes the kids feel more important. Then they want to learn more new things and everything like that. So nah, that's a great concept that you got going on there.
Yeah, and we actually have moved from using the PA system. We are able to stream it. I had a
Mm,
phenomenal music teacher who kind of does podcasting and all this. came up with a method for us to create our own YouTube channel for the school, and we just streamed it. So every morning they would send out the link to get onto the live stream of the announcements, and they rocked and rolled, man. And like you said, it was amazing. Kids buying in. We would do different things, little games online or on the show. If they were, if they were to listen in and win, you could get it during lunch. So we try to do a lot more student-centered, student-friendly activities.
You know what? Because I'm laughing because I just showed my age, man. Because I said students would do it over the intercom. Because what we used to do, we used to go to the principal's office.
That's right. Go to
the office and we get on the microphone. We hit that little button. Yeah. Yep. So I'm just showing my age. Like I said, getting with the times because it's all digital, it's all technology, right? All social media and everything. So that's great, man. So, but my next question is because you did mention something that piqued my interest. Well, this whole interview piqued my interest, but how have you been dealing with, because you say like you have a lot of the Hispanic kids going to your school.
Mm-hmm.
My aunt, she's a teacher in Camden County in Camden, New Jersey. Mm-hmm. And she said that at one point the parents weren't even sending their kids to school because they felt as though that ICE or the government was going to come get them. Did you have that issue too in your school?
So we didn't see a drastic drop off from our students that originate from another country.
Gotcha.
Particularly those Hispanic countries, Hispanic Latino countries. We didn't see a massive drop off, but we did have occurrences where a student, one particular student went home, and the home was empty. Their parent was not there anymore. And we found this out because they had been missing school for like a week. Mm-hmm. So, teachers doing their due diligence, like what's going on? This is not normal for this child. Calling, didn't get through. End up coming with an idea, like, I'd probably say this and I might get in trouble, but ended up having a conversation with their friends. Like, have you all seen this young lady? Mm-hmm. And, a student said, yeah, I was just talking with her. Had him call him, FaceTime with him. And it's got the 411, which was basically the student's mom. He got picked up by ICE and detained. And then, the student, went home, wasn't there. So she called her uncle who lived in another city not too far. Mm-hmm. And they came and got her, but they couldn't, this uncle couldn't take care of her. So mm-hmm. they ended up having to make preparations for this child to be sent back to their, their country of origin to be with the mom again.
That's sad.
Yeah, we had another one where a student's father had got, picked up and placed in detention, and it just ravaged them emotionally. Like they just were, they would just come to school crying. Like they didn't know, like, how do you, how does a child comprehend that, or how do they deal with that? Like their parent they're used to seeing every day when they get home from school,
and they're not there,
and they're not just like that. Like,
right,
you're not here no more. You got to leave the country. And a lot of times those parents were, they're the breadwinner. They're the one that makes the most money. So now that's a whole new dynamic. So you're talking about families who are already kind of behind the eight ball and facing financial adversity. Now you take the breadwinner out of that equation, like they're left to do what? Like their only option is pretty much to like, all right, well, we need to go home too, because this
absolutely
we can't sustain life here without this individual.
Absolutely. So how much did, because you being in the behavioral, did I say that right?
Mm-hmm. No, yeah.
Stumbling over my words. I'm trying to be careful because I know you're an educator, but, I don't want to sound like a complete fool on my own podcast. But did those 2 years mm-hmm. of you being that type of educator help you cope with certain things being a principal now? Like, did those skills like kick in automatically?
I would say yes, because the kids I work with as a behavior therapist, a lot of them were severe and profound individuals. So some of them were had autism, some of them had some
Okay.
form of a learning disability,
Yep.
some form of a handicap, or maybe even possibly intellectually disabled. So that really helped me, particularly when I first started teaching, because I was aware of these disabilities already.
Mhm.
But also it helped me to look at kids as human beings. And I feel like a lot of times in education, educators kind of lose sight of that from time to time.
Mhm.
Like we don't look at these kids like our kids. And I always try to lead with that.
Mm.
Like what would you want? Um, what would you want for your own
For
kids?
your own child.
Would you
Yep.
be okay with the level of instruction, with the level of care, the level of attention you're giving now? Would you be okay with that if somebody was giving that to your own child?
Yep.
Because a lot of times, we kind of just be like, well, this ain't my kid. It is what it is. They ain't get
Right.
it. And that's a horrible approach, and it's definitely the wrong approach. We should be trying to treat these kids definitely with as much respect as possible, but we should be treating them the same way we want our kids to be treated. And I feel like if you take that approach to it, then you'll see the impact that you can truly have with these kids that are before you each and every day.
Oh, okay. So how important is that for the parents to be involved with their kids in school? I know it's very important, but like do you really stress that to get the parents more involved?
I absolutely do. For me, it's vital that parents are involved with schools. Um, I always say, like, you never want to not know who's in front of your kids for over 7.5 hours a day. That's how long a kid is in school, seven and
Yep.
a half hours. If you don't know who your teachers are, you've never laid eyes on them, they never laid eyes on you, that's a problem. That's a huge problem. You want to make sure you know, because then that lets that individual know that, oh, you're involved. Because for lack of a better term, the squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not squeaking, if a teacher don't hear you squeaking, like they not tripping.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that, because you got to think most in the middle school, a lot of teachers, average class size is like 35 plus kids.
Yep.
So
Overcrowding. Do you think that what's the average number you feel as though ballpark figure
mhm.
that an average amount of kids should be in the class? Because I can only imagine having 30 plus kids in one class is, you could do the best that you can, but you know,
It's, yeah, it's tough. I would say for me that the sweet spot would definitely be between 20 to 25 kids.
okay.
I
Okay.
think 20 to 25 kids is a decent sized class. You can do small group instruction. You can monitor and handle behaviors a lot better.
Mhm.
When you start pushing 30 plus, it's difficult on the individual. It's real, especially if they don't have any additional support, which is, depending on the type of students you have in your class, you may get additional support for that. So
Okay.
if you have you have students with special education needs, they have IEPs, you may get a paraprofessional or another a special educator that will co-teach with you, or team teach, so to speak. But sometimes if it's a general ed class, you might get stuck with 35 kids
Mhm.
by yourself. And that's a huge task when you think about it. And I
I
know
can only imagine.
it's a lot of people
I
that
can
be
only
like,
imagine.
man, y'all just overpaid babysitters. It's like, man, if you only knew,
Mm.
dealing with other people's kids is not babysitting, sir.
No,
Especially
you're
when
right.
you're expected to educate them. That's the furthest thing from what we do.
What is the most satisfying moment that you had as being a principal for 3 years?
The most satisfying moment I had was the first group of students, the eighth graders, that I was able to promote to high school.
Okay.
That first year made a lot of connections with students, and was super excited to see them as they were matriculating on to high school. A lot of which, we had went through a lot of went through a lot of heartache and pain, and had to love them through some of that stuff to help them get on the right path. But they made it to the finish line, and to hear them when they, because the kids always come back, especially when they go to high school, they all come back. So that next year they came back and like, man, you guys were in line. It's different in high school. We appreciate what you was trying to do.
Okay. No,
but yeah, y'all right. I was like, hey, sometimes, some of these lessons, bought lesson you might have to be the one that you needed, champ. You wasn't trying to catch this easy one. You had to learn it the hard way.
Now I want to go back a little bit back in college, because now you're in a fraternity, Omega Psi Phi. So, like, tell me that whole experience, and how does that matriculate over to what you're doing right now as a principal?
So Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, learned a lot as an undergrad through that fraternity. Learned about organizational leadership, learned about just being prompt, time on task. And I feel like a lot of those skills translated into, my current role now. Learned a lot about team building, learned a lot about group cooperation, group initiative, group loyalty. These are things that you need if you're going to step in a leadership role, because you have to know how to get buy-in from the individuals that you're working with. You have to understand how to speak and clearly communicate your goal, your mission, your vision, and really everybody having an understanding of their role in that. And it's really remaining dedicated to the cause, and really informing people of what your why is, and helping them understand what their why is and how it all aligns to the clear, to the community common goal, or communicated common goal. I'm sorry. So those are attributes that I've learned from my fraternity, that I use pretty much every day.
And it's carried over. Yep. No,
Yep.
that's what's up. Do you still step?
Not like I used to. Not like I used to, man. Good Lord.
Oh man. Hey, look, man, like I said, I was never, I went to HBCU, went on campuses and everything, and I saw how you brothers were so united, and just everything was just well thought out, and the routines and everything, but it wasn't even just the routines. Now I'm realizing it was discipline, and you guys were super disciplined. So I take my hat off, to all the fraternities and sororities out there, man. But 19 years in education, you went back and got your master's. You have a family, and your wife's in education too, also, correct?
Correct. Yep. She's a professional school counselor. Yep.
God bless that, man. You got kids in the school system, and so they're getting at both ends. And so I know they're like, look, mom and dad ain't playing. We got to do our damn work. You see what I'm saying? So
that's why I'm a little late tonight, because I was trying to make sure she got done what she needed to get done.
And that's what's up. And like I said, I appreciate you taking time, out for this interview. But you're doing so much, especially like being a principal, and you got 2 podcasts, not just one. You got 2. Brother, how in the world you got a whole family, and you not even just your kids, you got a whole school full of those are your kids. I hear teachers say that those are my kids. So
Right.
you got a whole nother family of kids out there.
Right.
Not trying, you know what I mean.
No,
but,
I get it. No, I get it.
But how can you do a podcast? Not even just one. You got 2 podcasts. So tell me about your podcast, man, because I've been checking them out. I checked out Beer and Burgers, the latest episode, man. So tell me how that all came about, man.
So it's funny. So the first podcast I started was Academic Therapy. That was the Educator one. So I started that like 5 years ago. I had the idea to do it. It was really it came to fruition during COVID. You know,
During COVID. Yep.
There you go, right. We were home, we were
Yep.
teaching virtually. So you just you know, you had an abundance of time. So it was
a
just
lot
like,
of time.
yeah. So, you know, I call a friend, like, let's just chop it up, see what's, you know, what's going on. Or, you know, you would talk with your friends about what's going on right now in education. It's like, we should record this because I feel like what we're talking about would
very
benefit
important.
people, and other people would chime in and understand it. So I started it, did one episode and posted on Spotify, but then life kind of happened. You know, we started coming back to school. We weren't virtual as much anymore. So then, you know, some time passed, and I was just like, man, it was always in the back of my mind, like, you need to bring that back. I think that was a good, that's a good opportunity. So I was just like, man, and then all of a sudden the podcast craze started taking off. So
Yes, it did.
you know, that was back in 2020 when I did that, and then all of a sudden everybody has a podcast. I was
Yeah,
like,
including me. Yeah,
right.
me of all people.
Yes. Like I got two. So it was just like, I was like, man, let's go and do it, man. So I just started, you know, I called some friends or acquaintances, people I meet at educational conferences, and be like, hey, would you mind getting on? Let's have a conversation about XYZ. And, you know, I've never been turned down. I'd be like, yo, I would love to. I think this is great. And the title academic therapy came because, you know, we were talking about education, but it's one of those things, like in education, you don't really have that opportunity to debrief a lot of times. Like things happen all the time in education. And, you know, we just kind of just we got to keep pushing. I was just like, we never get that opportunity to kind of sit back and reflect and debrief and unpack what we've just experienced. So, you know, that could be from having to call CPS because the kid, you know, was he came to you and said, yeah, my mom burnt me with the iron or whatever because I didn't take out the trash. So from that to, you know, all of a sudden funding issues with the school. So there's my job on the line, or this, that, and the third. It's just like there's never that opportunity for educators to kind of release all of that stress. So that's where the academic therapy piece came from. The second podcast, Beer and Burgers, is kind of just my fun podcast where we just chop it up. And that's because I have a group of friends. We kind of travel around and we go to college games and tailgate. So that really was supposed to focus on is just tailgating, us traveling, drinking beer, sampling beer, eating burgers, who got the best, you know, football game, collegiate wise. And we recently went to this beer fest in Pittsburgh called Barrel and Flow. So, you know, we connected with them, and we just was talking like, yo, we should be recording this. So I was just like, all right. I just took my phone out and started recording them. You know, all the little hijinks that we got into, the conversations we were having. And then I just started making connections. So at the beer fest, connected with a lot of different brewers. And this Barrel and Flow beer fest is so dope because it's primarily black owned brewers. So these are, you know, these are our brothers, our sisters who are out here carving their own lane in the brewing industry, man, and just kind of getting insight on what that was like. So just talking with them and just saying, hey, look, man, we got a podcast. We'd love for you to join us, kind of talk to us about your journey in coming up with this beer. So lately, that's been kind of the flow so far. As we got a big game for Delaware State. We're playing Norfolk State next Thursday
at the link, right? Yeah.
Right, we're playing at the link. So it's going to be Coach Jackson versus Coach Vic. And so we've been kind of trying to pump that up as well. So, you know, I have connects with Delaware State. So I've been reaching out to former players. Most recent last week, the last episode we dropped off was an episode with Darnarian McCant, who's also, he turned out to be one of my frat brothers, most recently crossed over.
Okay.
But Darnarian, an amazing story. Brother came out of Baltimore, Maryland. Wasn't highly sought after. Ends up going to Dell State on a track and a football scholarship. He comes out of HBCU. He gets drafted.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So he gets drafted to the Redskins. He played for the Eagles for a period of time. So he got a brother who came out of a HBCU and goes to the pros, which is really unheard of a lot. You're like, you don't hear too many brothers coming out of an HBCU and make it to the pros and have a nice career. You know, obviously you got Jerry Rice and you know, Shannon Sharp, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you don't hear about that story too often compared to
No.
brothers who come out of like a Michigan or
Right.
Alabama, or these big name schools, these Big Ten, these SEC schools. So now, just with the whole hype of the game, trying to get some brothers from Norfolk just to get on the horn and talk about their experiences playing down in Norfolk State. So that's really what that one's. It's just a fun podcast. We laugh, we joke, we reminisce about good times, have a drink, chop it up, man. So it's really, for me, it's just it helps me to stress relief, so to speak. So it helps me to kind of like, all right, it's been a stressful day. Let me get on here and talk about something that's gonna, relax me a bit. So that's really how the 2 podcasts came out. And then I'm working with my wife on a 3rd podcast about marriage and family. So we'll see.
Damn, you got a lot of stuff going on, brother.
Yeah,
but real quick, this is the most important question. What is the best tailgate that you went to date thus far?
Ooh, best tailgate.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to say Del State, but I'm
Of course you're gonna. If you would have said Del State, I would have said, you know what? Thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure. I said he better say Del State.
I would definitely say Del State is number 1 on my list. The close runner up, I would say, was the University of Miami.
Okay.
Man, we did that. It was the U versus FSU.
Okay.
Yo, man, when I tell you that, and they play at the Hard Rock Stadium. Man,
okay.
Yeah, and that's on our IG page. I'll give you that link too.
Okay.
Man, dude, that is an amazing tailgate. The way, and it's just love. Like, we were just walking around, people just say, "Yo, you want something to eat?" Got it, dude. It was just love.
Okay.
The next best one, I would have to say, might have been Tennessee.
Really?
We went, and it was Tennessee versus Georgia. And quiet as kept. I thought we was going to kind of get the side eye in Tennessee. I wasn't expecting it.
Really?
Yeah. It's just a group.
Tennessee. I was like, Tennessee is like.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah. It's a group of brothers. We hop out of a Sprinter van, like we are the team, and they be looking at you cockeyed most of the time. Anytime like we stop and get something to eat. But we popped out, we start setting up, man. Them brokers, they coming over like, "How you doing, sir?" Like, "Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?"
Hey, look, man.
Dude,
the one thing, entertainment, especially music and sports, brings people together that you thought that you would never be in contact with.
I'm telling you.
You have something in common with.
I'm telling you.
So I'm telling real quick. I remember, like, this is back in the late 90s. I'm driving and I have this song on, and this white guy, he pulls up on the side of me, and he turned down his music and he was listening to mine. He was like, such and such. I was like, yeah, and it's like, damn, you know that? He was like, yeah,
right.
Like I said, we have that's the one thing, we have so much in common when it comes to entertainment.
That's right.
And sometimes we just put things aside.
Yeah.
And that's crazy, man. Like I said, man, I salute you, man. But look, you're the principal, so we got to get you out of here because you got to be sharp for your kids tomorrow. But just run down all your social media handles, like where people can follow you and on Instagram, Facebook, and subscribe to your podcast also.
My man. So you can follow me at The One, The Truth on Instagram. That's my personal. For my podcast for academic therapy is really Academic Therapy Podcast.
Okay.
IG Baron Burgers is the at Baron Burgers Podcast on IG. We can find those episodes. They're posted on YouTube as well, and Spotify.
Okay. No, that's what's. Hey, look. Once again, big shout out to Thomasina, man, because I really enjoyed this episode. You enlightened me to like a lot of things. Like the challenges that you had, like you didn't like education at first, and now you're in love with. Now this is your career. You just wasn't looking for a paycheck. Now, like you're putting you're dedicating your all into this, and you want to see these kids thrive. And especially in this climate that we're living in right now, just dating back from 6 years ago, I can only imagine being an educator back when COVID first hit up until now, because like you have like a lot of kids that have like a lot of social issues.
Yeah,
And
man.
you actually did say that. And you dedicated yourself to help these kids and to help your community, along with the position that you held, and just being in the fraternity, and with your podcast, because you're getting out vital, very good information. And not even just that, is trickling down to your kids, because now your kids see the importance of education. And what you and your wife are doing, man, I salute you, man. Thank you for this interview, man. Anytime you want to come back on, if you want to promote something, just let me know, man. Because like I said, even though that this is a musical show, a musical podcast, but I wanted to expand out, because if you have the platform, you have to be you have to be you have to use it to, not just to your advantage, but just to the masses advantage. And that's what I'm just trying to do. And I'm just trying to interview interesting people that make a difference in our communities. And I want to thank you for coming on, bro.
No doubt, man. I appreciate you having me, man. This was dope, man. You doing it.
Look,
Making impact, man.
hey, look, man, look. I was nervous as hell, because I'm like, look, man, I gotta clean up my vocabulary a little bit. You know what I mean? So, I can't talk the slang now. You know what I mean? Because when I talk to the artists, we have a different language. I'm like,
Right.
I don't want to mispronounce words and all that. I'm just like, I want you to get on the phone to my Thomas. Why? Like, why? Why did you have me on this guy's podcast?
Man, this is dope, man. I appreciate you having me, man. Because it's different. I learned the other side like you. So
I learned a lot, and I thank you. And this isn't the last time that we're going to be talking. And I got all your media handles and all that. We became friends on Instagram and Facebook, and I'm going to promote you to the fullest, bro, because we need more young brothers like yourself in the school system teaching these kids. It doesn't matter if it's our kids, African American. You just need to, like, you're there teaching kids, because this is just my opinion. I feel as though that the American kids, compared to the kids from overseas, I think that we're kind of behind we're not behind the 8 ball, but we're kind of behind. And it's not because of you guys, it's because of just what's going on over here. So, but we need more dedicated people, more like you, like in the school systems, and supporting our HBCUs, man. And like I said, man, thank you for coming on, man. It's been a true pleasure, man. Get some sleep, because you got your kids tomorrow, bro.
My man, appreciate you, bro. Have a blessed one.
Hey, look, man, you have a good night, man. I'll talk to you later on, okay?
All right, peace.
Peace. And that is going to do it for me, man. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Cybe TV signing out. I love the interview, because I learned a lot, and we came a long way, but we still have so much more to go. And people like Mr. Michael Coates is going to lead us into the right direction. So I want to thank that brother for coming on. Hey, look, that's another one in the books, and I'm trying to get all these. I got so many interviews that I have not posted yet. I'm trying to get them posted, and I will keep you posted on the interview. So, Cybe TV signing out. I'll talk to you guys next week or whenever. Peace.